All right. But the vast majority of law firm owners, they get this whole concept of AI way wrong. And this causes disastrous results within their firms. And you're probably thinking about it wrong yourself. And I'll prove it to you. Watch. So on this left side here, this represents a traditional non-AI based workflow, where the work box here, this represents the meaningful work and activities that create the outcomes for your clients. And this is that outcome. This is the output of your work. So it's a basic in and out equation. Right now, you'll notice that these boxes are exactly the same size, right? Because I'm an amazing artist. And this is because this is supposed to represent a relationship, a one-to-one relationship between the energy you put into the system and what you get out of it. When we're talking about AI, we're talking about an exercise in leverage production, meaning how do we either enhance the output that we get with the same amount of energy, or how do we reduce the amount of energy we need to put into the system to get the same output that we were getting previously, right? So AI can do one of two things. It can either expand output or it can compress workload, right? So the problem is that they get caught up in the AI hype, the marketing hype, and they don't first identify suitable activities within their firm that would make sense for AI to create a meaningful, measurable effect, right? So in other words, they're not identifying the constraint in their legal services model. You sort of have two scenarios here. You've got scenario one, where the firm identifies some sort of AI functionality that would be helpful to them to do work that they're already doing. So for example, I have a client who, as of recently in the last year, they've started receiving a tremendous amount of pushback from clients when their engagement called that they create a discovery request timeline for the client. The firm needed to perform this activity because ultimately they would use that to incorporate it in their motion to compel to keep things rolling forward. It's just the client grew tired of paying the amount of hours that they were requesting for that item, right? Do you see what I'm saying here? This represents a real constraint in the model because there are now two things that are incompatible. So what this firm did is we actually implemented an AI system that would take all of the firm's emails and it would automatically output that timeline, that request timeline. So again, as you can see here, we're compressing the workload. So what that means is that when we get to our next step, the work that the attorneys are doing manually, and you'll see this box is supposed to also represent the same size box there, you'll see the attorneys actually now only have to do this portion of the work because the AI is now taking over the production of this component here, right? So this is a net gain in productivity. Now, the interesting thing about this and why AI, when you're using it in this fashion, becomes so great is that our output is essentially unchanged. We still get the timeline, we get the same output as we get in this scenario, these are the same width. However, look at the work that the attorney had to do. It's substantially less than in the non-AI augmented workflow. So we'll call this version of using AI the faster approach, because we're using AI to perform activities that we're already doing in a more efficient manner. So then you may find yourself in another scenario that would be a good case for AI, which is you're looking to do more. Let's say you want to service a different segment of the market that you previously were unable to service due to time or resource constraints. So for example, I have a client who does a tremendous amount of work in the real estate, restaurateur space, analyzing and drafting contracts. Now, historically, they have never been able to service the mainstream market because they were not able to charge a fee that would make that work meaningful and work out economically for the firm. So in this scenario, they had a hunch. They said, Jay, we'd like to use AI to make the process of drafting those contracts much more seamless so that we can make ourselves available to a lower segment of the market. So in this particular scenario, what they did is they went backwards. They took the AI to expand the capabilities of the firm. And what that did is that when you look at their, and again, these pictures are just, you're going to have to bear with me, but this box is supposed to represent the same width as a non-AI workflow. So the same amount of work that went into it, but now you'll see there's surplus work that's being done. but all of this work is being done by the AI. So it actually does not affect the firm's productivity at all. And the interesting thing about it is that when you look at our output, we're able to reap the advantages of the AI. So now you'll see our output is actually drastically larger, at least it's supposed to be. This is supposed to be larger than that, than even the faster workflow or even the traditional workflow with no AI, right? So we'll call this approach the more approach because we're using AI to net us an increase in output, okay? So you might say this seems fairly easy to follow. I don't see how a firm could ever have any issues or get in trouble. Well, that's where you'd be wrong. Because all too often, I'll see a firm who either gets lost in marketing hype, and, or they go to a trade show and a vendor tells them this AI platform is going to revolutionize the way that you run your firm. So rather than properly taking the time to identify the constraint that might exist in their legal services model, they go to the tool first, right? So just like in the first scenario, we have our AI platform, except when they look at the meaningful work that's required to generate the outputs that they need for their clients, you'll see that the AI functionality, the new functionality that the AI brought, actually falls squarely outside of the useful domain of the work that needs to be created. So all this is now wasteful energy expenditure because you don't get to capture this in this last step here. Your work output remains the same as if you were not using AI, even though you are using AI, but it's just because you're using it for tasks that are not appropriate, and it's actually just generating more work for you and your staff at the end of the day. Ultimately, this all comes down to a firm will then be bad, this is supposed to say, a firm will then be disenchanted with AI, and then they become detractors, when really, if they would have taken the approach to first identify the constraints, then they would be a much better place. With all of this, these issues, especially the bad here, this can be avoided by simply using a framework. Now, I created a framework that I call Leverage AI. It's not the only framework out there. I'm sure there are many that work well. However, this Leverage AI has served my clients well. It provides scaffolding to identify the activities that might be suitable to either wholly or partially outsource to AI. And it all starts with the very first letter, the L, is identifying the limit or the constraint in your model. And you follow the acronym through. This is probably one of the top questions that I get, at least as of lately. So I wanted to put all of this into one resource so that it exists for you. Please share this with your network, share this with an attorney who you believe may benefit from an explanation like this. And of course, if you like content like this, be sure to follow me on LinkedIn, where I post frequently videos just like this one. And I'm always talking through the lens of enhancing the way that you run your legal practice by leveraging technology. All right, take care.